My name is Sarah Collins. The day my mother publicly called me a disappointment, she believed everyone in that courtroom would agree with her. She sat confidently beside my older sister, smiling as if the outcome had already been decided. To them, I was the black sheep of the family, the daughter who moved away, the daughter who rarely attended family gatherings, the daughter they described as irresponsible, selfish, and unsuccessful. For years, that story had spread through the family like a disease, and most people believed it. As I walked into the courthouse that morning, I noticed familiar faces everywhere: aunts, uncles, cousins, people who hadn't spoken to me in years but somehow knew everything about my life. Or at least, everything they had been told. My mother glanced at me and whispered loudly enough for nearby relatives to hear. "She actually showed up." A few people laughed. I ignored them and quietly took my seat. The case involved my grandfather's estate. When he passed away, his will stated that his assets would be divided equally among all grandchildren. That included me. My mother and sister challenged the will. Officially, they claimed my grandfather had been pressured into signing it. But the real reason was obvious. They couldn't accept that I would receive the same share as everyone else. The hearing began. Their attorney stood and confidently addressed the judge. He described me as unreliable, financially unstable, disconnected from the family, someone incapable of handling significant assets. Every negative statement seemed to make my mother more satisfied. She nodded repeatedly, as if approving every word. Then came the moment that revealed exactly how little they knew about me. The attorney claimed I had struggled financially for years. My sister smirked. My mother actually laughed. "She can barely take care of herself." Several relatives exchanged amused looks. I remained silent. I had learned long ago that arguing with people determined to misunderstand you is usually a waste of energy. The judge eventually turned toward me. "Miss Collins, would you like to respond?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." I walked forward carrying a single document folder. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional. Just facts. I handed the folder to the court clerk. The judge opened it. At first, his expression remained neutral. Then he paused. He looked at the page again, and then again. The room became noticeably quieter. Finally, he looked up. "Dr. Sarah Collins?" "Yes, Your Honor." My mother frowned. My sister looked confused. The judge continued reading. According to the records, I was not a struggling woman trying to survive. I was a trauma surgeon. I had spent nearly 2 decades working in emergency medicine. I had served in humanitarian missions across multiple countries. I had received professional awards for medical leadership and disaster response. The silence inside that courtroom became almost uncomfortable. My mother stared at me, not with pride, not with happiness, with shock, as if she were hearing about a stranger. The judge continued. "These records also indicate that Dr. Collins owns 2 medical clinics and employs more than 30 staff members." Someone behind me whispered. Another relative lowered his head. My sister's confidence disappeared instantly. My mother finally spoke. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" For a moment, I nearly smiled, because they had been told. Many times. I had shared updates for years. Photos, messages, invitations, news articles. Achievement after achievement. But none of it matched the story they preferred. So they ignored it. The judge wasn't finished. He reviewed additional financial documents. Then he looked directly at my mother's attorney. "The claim that Dr. Collins is financially unstable appears completely unsupported." The attorney shifted uncomfortably. The judge then requested that a sealed statement attached to my grandfather's will be read into the record. The courtroom became silent once again. The clerk opened the envelope. My grandfather's words filled the room. If this letter is being read, it means someone has questioned my decision. Several relatives leaned forward. The clerk continued reading. Money should never be distributed according to popularity. The room remained silent. I have watched my grandchildren throughout their lives. Some visited only during holidays. Some appeared when favors were needed. Then came the sentence that changed everything. But one granddaughter consistently showed kindness when no one was watching. My throat tightened. I already knew who he meant. For years, I had visited him every week. I drove hours after work just to spend time with him. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we sat quietly on the porch. Sometimes I simply helped with groceries and household chores. I never expected anything in return. I certainly never expected an inheritance. The letter continued. Character is revealed by what people do when there is nothing to gain. Several family members avoided eye contact. My mother looked down. My sister stared at the table. The judge eventually finished reading. A few moments later, he dismissed the challenge. The original will would remain exactly as written. Case closed. Just like that. Years of accusations collapsed in a single afternoon. People slowly began leaving the courtroom. The laughter was gone. The confidence was gone. The story my family had repeated for years had finally met reality. Outside, I walked toward my car. The air felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. Before I reached the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. My mother stood there. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. She looked older than she had that morning. Smaller somehow. Finally, she asked a question. A simple question. One I had secretly wanted her to ask years ago. When did all this happen? I looked at her. Then I answered honestly. It didn't happen overnight. She waited. I continued. It happened over years. Years of studying. Years of working. Years of trying to share my life with people who weren't interested. Her eyes filled with emotion. Not because she was proud. Because she realized how much she had missed. She had spent years believing a version of me that never existed. And now she was face to face with the consequences. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said, I guess I never really knew you. I nodded. No. You knew the story. Not me. The words hit harder than any argument ever could. She looked away. And for the first time in my life, she had no response. I got into my car. As I started the engine, I remembered something my grandfather used to say. The strongest people don't spend their lives proving others wrong. They spend their lives building something so meaningful that the truth eventually speaks for itself. As I drove away, I finally understood what he meant. That day wasn't about winning an inheritance. It wasn't about embarrassing my family. It wasn't even about proving them wrong. It was about freedom. The freedom that comes when you stop chasing approval from people who decided long ago not to see you. And as the courthouse disappeared in my rearview mirror, I realized something important. Their opinion had never defined me, and it never would.